Hi, I'm Nina Cook, and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. I have a wonderful guest with me today. I'm very excited to welcome Peter Sandeen. He focuses on the fundamentals that make marketing consistently effective. He helps his clients to create optimum results with their marketing messaging, with their sales funnels, and conversion optimization. Many experts use his processes and frameworks to simplify the most complex marketing topics because his methods work. He has an amazing way of giving really practical advice, which you can follow through to get great results. Peter, welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And I know that normally you're talking about messaging and how to really get your message out there to a bigger audience in a clearer way. And today you're going to be talking about mindset and the mindset that's enabled you to grow your success. And I'm sure we'll be talking about messaging as we go through as well. But I'm really interested, as I'm with all of my guests, to find out how you're thinking, how your inner game has helped you to achieve what you've achieved so far. But before we get into that, can we go back to the beginning and how you came to where you are now and your journey along the way?
Okay. Well, I think the short-ish version is that I was pretty good at school. Like, it was just fairly easy for me. So everyone assumed that like most good students in Finland, that I would go to what is called lukio, which is kind of similar to like high school in many other countries, or like something kind of before university, like general education. You don't specialize in anything. You just get smart. But the last moment, quite literally the last day before I had to make the choice, I decided, no, I want to record music. So I went to vocational school instead. I got the degree. I was about to start a business in a specific area of that industry, and was like, no, this is really cool and I like it now, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to do this for 40 hours a week. So I'll figure out something else. Then a few months later, I decided that, well, I kind of enjoy making clothes. I'll go and learn how to sew. So I went to sewing school for a couple of years and started a business there. And then like a few months after that, I was making like high-end custom-made wedding gowns, which is not what you'd expect. Not that anyone would have expected, me the least. But yeah, I just got bored with the work. I thought that, well, I wouldn't want to do this for very long. So what could I do? And by that point, my wife, back then still a girlfriend, was like, have you noticed that you don't talk about anything but marketing? I was like, that's kind of true. So maybe I'll start a marketing business. And a few months later, I was full-time doing marketing, specifically copywriting. And from there, I moved to conversion optimization because I thought it would be interesting to see like what else makes a big difference to sales other than the copy or the text. And while doing that, I started to see that, well, what you actually communicate, like what is the point you make? What is it that people understand? That's 99% of your sales, or like 99% of the impact you make. Whereas the rest of the 1% at the end is how you do it. But still, that how you do marketing is what almost everyone focuses on. They try all the different tactics and tools and such, instead of figuring out, well, what is it that you're actually saying with those things? Because that's where the real impact would be. And from then, I've really focused on what I used to call value propositions, and I still sometimes call it that. But honestly, what I do is quite far from the typical idea of value proposition. Rather, I figure out, well, these are the three things that have the biggest impact on people's likelihood of buying from you. So make sure they understand these three things. Like that's what I've done ever since then. And then sales funnels, I've always kind of helped with people though. So it just came in between, because once you know what you need to say, then you need to build a system. And only then you can start optimizing it. People often jump to the optimization part. And you can't do that effectively without a proper system, whether you call it a sales funnel or a pipeline or strategy or sales and marketing system or whatever, doesn't care. There needs to be a system, some sort of something you can measure and improve.
That sounds fascinating.
That's how I'm on now.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely fascinating. So from making wedding gowns, top-end wedding gowns, now you're doing something completely different, but I imagine there were some skills that were crossing over in each of those different areas.
Yeah, so the two businesses the first one that I was about to start, and honestly, I did already start doing some of the work before I had the official papers in and such, but like both of those, I kind of got bored as soon as I figured out how to sell it consistently, like how to make my marketing work. I never thought of it as marketing, really. I just thought, well, how do I like reach the people who want this, and like what specific offer can I make that's far better than anyone else is offering them? Like that's what I was thinking, which are the basics of marketing. I didn't really think of it as marketing. I was just reading marketing books and sales books and blogs and going through courses and all that. But I never thought that I would be interested in marketing. I just thought that, well, I want to sell these services that I want to do. So yes, I learned a lot by doing those things, but yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, we all have to market because we have to tell people about what we do. We can't get away from it. But a lot of people hate marketing. They really don't enjoy it, do they? They don't get around to doing it. They'll make any excuse not to do it. They'll say, well, I'll add a bit more copy to my website, or I'll read another book or something. But they put off actually doing the marketing. Without the marketing, we're not going to get clients. We know that. And there are so many different ways of marketing. Why do you think so many people dislike marketing and do anything to avoid doing it?
I think a few reasons. One reason is one that I shared very much. My parents taught me, and this is very much a Finnish culture thing as well, but my parents, I think even more so than average here, taught me very explicitly that marketing and especially advertising are simply bad. Like you're not supposed to do it. Like you need to be somewhat evil to do those things. Mm-hmm. They didn't directly say it that way, but that was very clearly the message that like advertising is bad. Marketing is not like, it's not good. It's just there to manipulate people into buying useless shit. So like that was the message. So I never thought that I would want to go into marketing, but I think that's at the back of a lot of people's minds. A lot of people, I'm sure, feel on some level that like, I shouldn't do this. Like I shouldn't manipulate people. If people want to buy this, then they buy. And like, it shouldn't be my need to like tell them about it or convince them to do it or push them into doing it. If they don't want to, it's wrong for me to try. I think another reason is that it's very complicated, especially the way that it's taught online. There's so many people saying somewhat contradictory things, or at least apparently contradictory things. It's very hard to see how things fit together if no one tells you the big picture, and no one really tells you the big picture. Everyone tells the big picture that is a sales pitch for their thing. So everyone shows a very different view to things. So it becomes very difficult to see it. And also, like, it's a lot of the skills take a lot of practice. So especially if you don't have understanding of how the things fit together, so you're not really doing the right things, and those things are pretty difficult to do. They take a lot of time, and you just don't happen to be someone who enjoys doing those things, like most people don't. Then like, what's there to like enjoy? It's just pain. It's just doing a ton of things, way more than you have time or interest for, things that are very difficult that you don't really have good instructions for. You don't really even know what's the goal you're going for. Like you don't know how to succeed at it, and then you'd rarely get any results. So no wonder very few people enjoy it. And like out of my clients, 60, 70, 80% are always marketing experts, people who sell marketing consulting or marketing coaching or marketing products. And usually they've done their own marketing kind of so-so. It's just not something people are very good at, because, and that's the kind of the fourth reason, it's incredibly difficult, and this applies to me as well, it's incredibly difficult to see your own thing from the outside. And you are by default selling to people on the outside. You're not selling to yourself. Even if you say that, well, you're just like your customers, that might be true, but you're also the person who's built this thing, whether it's a product or service. So seeing how someone who didn't build it would see it is really, really hard. So no wonder most people don't enjoy marketing. It's just a confusing mess of difficult things that take a lot of time and don't create consistent results. Like, what kind of sadist or masochist do you need to be to enjoy that? Like, it's just, I'm not at all surprised that most people don't like it.
Yes, and because we try things, we put effort, time, energy, investment into it, and we don't get a good result, then it's so easy to think, this just doesn't work, or I'm not cut out
Yeah.
to be an entrepreneur, and I'm never going to make this work for me. It's so easy to start going down that negative thinking. So when things haven't worked for you, how do you get past that? Oh, it's never going to work for me. How do you get past that, thinking?
Um, well, first of all, like kind of how I've always gone through life. Like at some point, people were laughing at me for like switching jobs or switching career ideas because I had three, which I think nowadays isn't all that much. But like anyway, my idea of how to find what you should be doing is like, well, you just run to one direction as fast as you can until you hit a tree, and you don't know when you're going to hit a tree. And when you do, then you just pick another direction that looks good, and then you just run to that direction as fast as you can so that you hit a tree as soon as possible. And at some point, you find a direction to run where you don't hit a tree. And for me, that happened to be marketing. I have yet to hit that tree where I'm like, well, no, this was the wrong direction. I think a lot of people kind of go through things with this idea that, well, I'll take it very carefully. And as soon as there's any small like stumble, then they're like, okay, well, that was the wrong thing, or this is really hard. And like somehow the lack of clear momentum makes it even harder. So like how I think this kind of ties in with how I deal with setbacks is that I view it as just go to one direction really quickly so you find out if it's the right direction as quickly as possible, because the sooner you figure out, like the sooner you fail, the sooner you can find the next option. And going slower to the same direction would not have made it any better, or it's extremely unlikely. But yeah, if setbacks come up, the way that I think of it is that there's no way you're going to succeed at anything or do anything meaningful on your own scale or any other scale without failures. So don't try to be married to the results of any project, for example. So if the project doesn't work out, then, well, you just learn from it. And the bigger the failure, the more things you can learn from it. But overall, like there's a lot of this, people think that, well, I'm doing this thing and it needs to create these results for it to have been successful. But there are very few things where you actually control results. You control what you do, but very, very, very rarely can you actually control results. So you have to have this mindset of, I'm focusing on the process. So when results come, or when the lack of results come, I can learn from it and adjust the process so that eventually I will get to the goals I want to get to, most likely. So instead of it being a setback, it's just part of the journey. So as long as you're focused on the journey, it's far easier to think of setbacks as just learning opportunities or something, which I know is like this kind of like, it sounds stupid, but and if you take it as just, well, challenges or setbacks are learning opportunity, it is kind of stupid. But I think if you look at it from the perspective of like focus on the journey, focus on the process of reaching certain results, instead of having this idea, I need to reach those results once I've done steps X, Y, and Z. I mean, there might be 17 steps after those, and you can't know before you reach the third step. So focus on the kind of the process instead of the outcomes.
It's brilliant. I love it. And, it makes so much sense. And this is stuff that I do with my clients all the time, make mistakes, because these are all learning opportunities. And it all comes down to mindset. So you can look at maybe you've done a launch, or, you put up your prices, no one's bought it, whatever it is, you can say, well, that means I'm a failure. We can look at it like that, nothing's ever going to work for me. Or you can say, wow, okay, so that didn't give me the result I wanted. What can I do, as you say, to change the process in order to get that result? It's a completely different energy, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The two ways to look at it. So we always have a choice and a decision about how we look at anything that happens in our lives. And as you said, we can't control the variables out there. So just focus on how we react and what we can control, what we can truly control, which is our thought process and the decisions and the choices we make. And it's wonderful to say that, think of it as a journey, because when you think of it as a journey, it's more of an adventure, isn't it? It's got a much lighter, more enjoyable energy.
Yeah, and like makes it so that you don't kind of have to think of setbacks as a bad thing, or you don't have to think of them as learning opportunities. They just are part of the journey. It is, instead of thinking that, okay, this journey is X months long, and by the end of those months, I will have this result. And if you don't, then, well, failure. No, it's that, well, you're today on the journey towards those results, and tomorrow you're on the journey towards them, and like maybe you get results, maybe you don't, but you learn something, and you get closer, maybe not a lot, but you get closer to the results every day. And if you can focus on that, which isn't easy, I mean, especially in like our cultures, I think it's very much results driven. This idea that, well, you need to have goals so you can measure them, and if you don't measure them, then you can't manage them, and then you just fail. I mean, like, that's the mentality, and there's truth to it, but I think there's this, like, it's easily thought of as the correct mindset, at least the way that I would use the word mindset. Whereas I think it's just a tool, like results and measuring things and all that. That's a tool. The mindset is, what do you focus on? And I think it's healthier to focus on the process and focus on the thought that, well, it's going to take an X amount of time, and it's an unknown. It's just like a mathematical X. I don't know how many months it's going to take. I'm just going to go towards that goal. And hopefully, at some point I will reach it. And hopefully at some point I will start to get a sense of how far I am, so I can decide if I want to continue. But like, thinking that it has to come at a certain point is useful for like managing bigger companies and such. Like, there's a lot of value in measuring things and all that. But if you do that as a mindset, then you're screwed. Like, it's going to be like a recipe for endless stress.
Yes, and the stress. You don't enjoy the journey. You don't take your learnings. You're just so married to the result that you base your value and your self-worth on that result.
Yeah.
And that's where we yo-yo through life. That's where we ricochet off the walls, and our emotions are just up and down, and we feel we have no control over them because we're tying our value to our results.
Yeah.
And our value is not tied to our results. Our value is inherent within us. It has nothing to do with our results. Our results are just something that they're doing. And also, don't you find that when you feel you're not getting the results that you want, you're looking around, you're going on social media, etc., and someone's saying, "Oh, I just made this $1 million launch," and all the rest of it. It's so easy, isn't it, to get distracted from our business and what we're doing, and start looking around and saying, "Well, they're doing better than me. There must be something wrong with me. Why am I getting results? Why don't I ever get a break?" And again, start just beating ourselves up.
Yeah. It is, especially if you're focused on the results. And I've done that a lot. Like, I'm not judging anyone for doing that. Yeah, I think almost everyone has done it a lot. But yeah, if you see other people succeed better, then if you're focused, and again, I know it's difficult, but I try my best to focus on the process. If you're focused on that, then seeing others get great results is more of a, how did they do it? What can I learn from that? So that this can, like, their good results can be a step forward for me, because I can learn from it. I can bypass some mistakes I would have otherwise made. Like, if you can focus on that, then you don't feel bad about it, but rather you feel good about those great results others are getting. Sure, you don't enjoy your lack of results. That doesn't, like, it. That's not what I mean. But it changes the perspective to it, and then it's much easier to handle how you feel about it, which means it's much easier to also act proactively or act productively about it.
And there's another thing, isn't there, that really stops so many business owners getting their message out there, is that they worry and they have this fears around being seen, about being seen online, about being seen offline. They worry that they're a fraud and they'll get found out, and therefore they resist getting their message out there. They sort of hide, stay under the radar, stay pretty invisible. So this fear that we have about being visible and being seen and maybe being criticized and judged by people, if we put a video out there, someone might leave a horrible comment, people might criticize our emails. I mean, how do you approach that when you have your clients, you're saying, do these practical strategic things, and they're procrastinating and they're resisting it through fear of being out there?
Honestly, I'm not the best person to help with that. I have a lot of things I can share, but when people have that problem, I've come across this a couple of times. I think actually exactly twice, a client has had almost a crippling issue with that. The things that I've tried to do is make it so that they can, well, not that I would have lied to them, but I've made them do things that feel like they're not going to be published, but they will eventually be published. So for example, for one person who just wouldn't make a video, like he was supposed to make a couple of videos and he just wouldn't, like he would take 5 minutes to try once and fail and then be like, well, I'll try another time in a couple of weeks. And this went on for months and months. So what I try to do with those kinds of situations is like suggest that like you do something with the assumption it's not going to go anywhere, and then let someone else decide if it's good. It's not easy necessarily, but that's an option of like, well, that can help. Another thing that I think can help over with the like thought process behind it is that think of any one thing that you would like to learn, and like take like a specific topic out of that skill or out of that topic. Would you be willing to learn from someone who just learned that thing? They're not great at all the other things, but they did figure out this one thing. I assume yes, like why not? Which means it's okay to teach people who are just one step behind you. Like you don't have to know everything to be able to share something really valuable. And as for like being seen, I don't know what that actually means. Like, honestly, I don't think almost anyone is truly seen online. Like, very few people see me, like, because I don't really share my inner soul with that many people. So the idea that people see you online is kind of like, well, I think it's very narcissistic because people don't care. They don't look hard enough to see unless you specifically share your most inner thoughts. Then people might notice that, hey, there's this one genuine person online who's sharing real things. Like that's a very different thing. But generally speaking, there's thousands of distractions every minute for everyone. So like thinking that they will be focused on you so much that they will find the time to judge you so much that it would be somehow genuinely meaningful is very unlikely. And that really only starts to happen when there's thousands of people who already love you for what you do. There's the haters are allowed, but it's like, my point is try to be realistic. And I know I mean, I can share this idea, not that I would be perfect about it, but like if I see someone comment negatively about my things, I'm like, well, okay, that's apparently how you perceive it. Sorry, I guess that I don't help, like I'm not able to make content that is perfect for everyone. Like how could I ever do that? I'd wish I could, but like it's completely ridiculous idea that I would do anything meaningful, even remotely meaningful, useful, helpful, good for anyone if it wasn't bad or unuseful for someone else. Like there's always someone who's not going to like it. So thinking that that's possible is already like ridiculous. And being seen it's hard to be seen. What people see is either what you specifically decide to share with them. So if you want to tell them your greatest fears, then yes, people will see your greatest fears. Otherwise, they won't. Like it's very hard. Usually when people start sharing online and they make this big breakthrough of like sharing something personal and they're terrified of the response, pretty soon they start to be annoyed with the lack of any sort of response.
Yes.
So the reality just is that humans are not that interested in other humans unless they are given a very good reason for it. Once you like actually, if someone likes your style, they start following you along, and like for months and years they read everything you share, they watch every video, they buy everything. Okay, then they start to know you a little. But like it's like if you would go to a party and someone, like you said hello to everyone, and someone when you said hello, they are like, oh my god, like what did you think you're doing here? Like that's the like physical world equivalent of the typical bad comments online. It's completely useless because it's apparent that they didn't really take the time to go through what you're doing. Like we're not afraid of random stupid comments offline for the most part. So like there's no need to be very afraid of it online either.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I love the way you said that, because actually people are too busy focusing on themselves to really focus on you anyway. And yet, if you have something in the message that's of use to them, that's when they will stop and they will listen.
Yeah. And generally, like, if you think of yourself, how many people do you dislike online? You'll probably think of a long list, but you dislike them for a reason. They did something sleazy. They were dishonest. They promised something they wouldn't deliver. They were, I don't know, racist or mean or whatever. Like they did something wrong, according to you. There are other people who love them for that same thing, who share those people's weird values for whatever they did wrong. But like, you have a reason for hating people if you hate anyone. And the people who will hate you will have those really weird values for hating you. So like, it's like, if you wouldn't go to them for advice, why would you also take their criticism? So it's like, it's so easy to just get distracted by the loud, mean, random comments. Then like it's easy to forget that like it's stupid. Like, it's completely pointless if you really think of it, because it comes from someone who clearly has different values, who most likely really didn't understand what you're doing or why, who it wasn't intended for. And so like it's the difficulty is that online random people will come across what you do, and among those random people are those who will just hate it for whatever reason and who have nothing better to do than to tell you that they didn't like it.
Yeah. So don't waste any time or energy thinking about them, but think about your audience who could get value from any
Yeah.
message.
And it's hard to do because it's hard to ignore a very negative comment, but like, if you can, and like, try to think of what it actually means and how it doesn't really mean anything. There's no real offline equivalent of it. I think, like, just evolutionarily, we're very much attuned to negative comments, because one negative comment in a tiny village is pretty meaningful, because if there's 50 other people around you, if there's one person hating you, they might badmouth you to all the other 49 people, and suddenly you're being thrown out of the village and you're eaten by tigers. There's a reason to be upset about negative comments, but online, it's not the same thing.
No, I think that's fantastic. And other people's opinions are entitled to them, but it doesn't mean you have to take them on to be true about you. So what would be your top tip to anyone who wants to send out a really powerful, heartfelt message to their audience? What could be the one thing they could be thinking about next time they're sitting down and thinking, what can I write that would really resonate with the people I most want to help?
I think the easiest thing to think about is what problem or what lack of result, but generally speaking, what problem or what pain are they already thinking about, and how are they thinking about it? What are they thinking about it? What's the frustration? Why is it meaningful for them, and so on? If you're focused in your marketing on things that people are already thinking about, it's fairly difficult to do it very poorly, because it's like, I sometimes use this example that imagine wherever you are, just look around and try to catalog all the red things in your mind in a few seconds. Let's quickly just turn around and see all the red things. Now, tell me something blue in your room. You probably have no idea, because you're not looking for anything blue. The same thing happens with marketing. People are looking for the things that they're already thinking about. So if you don't start there, then you need to have a miraculously good headline, a miraculously good marketing. Like, you have to go 1,000 times beyond what is like reasonably likely. Like, yes, it happens sometimes. Every now and then, maybe once a year or something, you see an advertisement for something you didn't think of and you end up buying it. But realize that you did see a million other advertisements and you didn't recognize those because they didn't do that. You only generally recognize the ads that are talking about something you're already thinking about. And the same applies to all marketing. Even in a sales situation, it's still not about what you think or what your product is or anything. It's about what they think, what they want. And if your product or service fits into it, great. If not, then don't try to sell them something that won't help them. But so just focus on what they're thinking of already, and then go from there. At the very least, start from that. If you start the conversation from something like that, then you can focus on, you can lead the conversation to something that ties in more directly with what you're doing.
Great advice. And for our listeners and for our viewers who'd like to find out more about you and your work, how can they do that?
Well, obviously I would go there. No, I would go to petersandeen.com/Friday. It's where you can join. Well, you can join the same email list anywhere on my site, but like that's where you don't get anything extra. You just get to my email list where you get usually one weekly email. And the format I have is that it's every Friday called Friday Scribbles. And usually I answer one question that came up from a client or otherwise that week, but usually from a client, an actual question. And then I share the answer. If it was a client question, I share the answer I gave that client. Obviously, I anonymize the answers usually, but generally, like this is actually the practical thing you will now go and do. But in any case, my point is that I made this promise a while ago that I will never send a list email that doesn't have practical things to do. And when I say practical, I mean practical in the sense most people think of the word practical, not in the sense that most marketers seem to think practical is, which is I don't even know how that word devolved into this like nonsense that it is often now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and at the end, and I actually learned this from I think a UK-based Jewish company called Innocent. They have email lists where at the end they have random things. And I think it's just brilliant. Also, Tim Ferriss has a great email list where he just shares kind of random things. So I have a similar, what are a few things that I found out about or came across or saw or heard or whatever or thought of that I found really interesting. Things that if I wouldn't have thought of those, I wish someone would have told me so I would have come across them. Sometimes they're marketing related, usually not so much. So it's like trying to have something more interesting, like random and more intriguing than just marketing advice. Because if the question isn't related to what you're doing that week, then there's still something hopefully interesting at the end.
Fantastic. It sounds intriguing and lots of fun and value. And I shall certainly be subscribing myself. Peter, thank you so much for being here and sharing so much wonderful things that, talk about the mindset and how we can, get past setbacks and all of that. And before our call, you said you don't normally talk about mindset. You talk about the more practical, marketing and messaging. But you were absolutely terrific and you gave some great advice. And for everyone who's been listening and watching, I hope you got so much value from this. Thank you so much for joining us today. Till next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.